Sonic the Hedgehog, without a shadow of a doubt, has been around as long as time and as long as me and most old school video gamers you can name. In conjunction with that, he starred in his own plethora of video games, both for the Sega Mega Drive as well as the Master System, and also to that very end has starred in his own animated TV programs from the 90s, based upon the pulse pounding platform game we knew and loved, including The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic the Hedgehog, otherwise known as SAT AM, to us old school fans who sat through that. Of course, the absolute less said about Sonic Underground, the better as far as I'm concerned. On the 14th of February 2020, Sonic the Hedgehog the movie was released in cinemas across the county and globe, also including a particular Odeon cinema not really far pretty much from where I live. And I went out to see the film sometime in February of this year, and I was really, really impressed with how phenomenal and how well I thought the film got the character right. Not just the character, but also the franchise, the very franchise. And it wasn't every day, me being an old school video gamer, that I actually went into a movie and actually came out really praising a film for actually getting the franchise right. Because it's not like I went into this movie with any prospects or high expectations. I went in expecting nothing. Because every video game movie before now had been such a flop, I was not expecting this to actually hit so many nails with the right hammer. And this certainly prevailed in a way I never ever thought coming. So, a shadow of a doubt, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, and old school gamers alike, join me and our fast moving friend Sonic as I delve into this review of Sonic the Hedgehog the movie. The movie starts out with Sonic the Hedgehog, a very young version of him to be honest, running along the island that he grew up on. We're then introduced to Sonic's mentor and friend Longclaw. She warns him very thoroughly at the beginning of this film that he's getting too overconfident, he's getting too cocky, and that the wrong people could find him if he doesn't keep his wits about him. Because she's not just saying that for her sake, she's saying it for his own good as much as anyone, because she genuinely cares about Sonic and she doesn't want to see him hurt ever. At all. Sonic tries to give Longclaw a flower, but unfortunately they're confronted by people who are up to no good right from the word go. They try to escape, but unfortunately Longclaw is badly hurt by an arrow from the enemy and is unable to carry Sonic any further. Longclaw decides it's time to get Sonic to safety while she still can, so she takes the rings and uses one of them to call up a portal to our world, aka Earth. Just before she sacrifices herself to save Sonic's life, she takes him to one side and says the following words: "Wherever you go, let me tell you, in words on that account, you've got a power unlike anything I've ever seen. Wherever you end up, somebody will always want it." Sonic the Hedgehog ends up on our planet Earth and ends up scoping out a baseball game being played. He waits for them all to go and ends up basically having a go at it himself while moving so fast that he can basically look like, to the naked eye, he's every single player on the field, while it's just him. He ends up getting really upset and heartbroken because he remembers he's entirely on his own in the world, that he's Longclaw's, long since gone, and that's something that really pulls at his heartstrings, and it's understandable. You're going to have that reaction when you lose this really great mentor, friend, member of the family, and like icon that really gave you additional inspiration, something to keep you going. And I can kind of sympathise with him with that particular crux of the film. So he's going through the motions, and because he gets so worked up with his frustrations at losing out and thinking it'd be alone all for forever, for eternity, he ends up basically getting so worked up that he doesn't just run for as fast as he's ever done before, but he also triggers enough static electricity to basically cause basically a power surge, which basically knocks out power and lights pretty much all over the show. And it's only a matter of time, ladies and gentlemen, before the big guns come into play in more ways than one up and down the county. While this is all going on, we're then introduced to this lovely and very thoughtful officer of Green Hills, Montana, Tom. Tom's a very thoughtful, outgoing officer of Green Hills, but unfortunately, he's an officer who thinks he's basically done all he can for Green Hills, and he feels like he's just basically not achieving anything worthwhile while he's there. All he wants to do is just basically end up getting the opportunity to be a real officer about town or anywhere, and actually really get the opportunity to help somebody out in a life or death, a shadow of a doubt situation. And it gets very subtly irritable because he doesn't really feel like he's getting the chance to fulfill his full potential as an officer, but also as a cop. The government decides, after a bit of a lengthy discussion, to enlist the aid of not just any man of the government specifically to investigate the weird goings on with these particular shady blackouts, but to enlist the aid of Dr. Ivo Robotnik. In this variation of Sonic the Hedgehog, or Sonic the Hedgehog the movie 2020, whatever you like to call it, Jim Carrey's take on Dr. Ivo Robotnik is he's basically a guy. He's not just Dr. Ivo Robotnik, he's also a member of the US government to a point, and he's also an agent for the United States of America. And he's enlisted with the government's willing consent and with others severely reluctantly to try to get to the bottom of this and work out what's going down, why it's all so pear-shaped, what's all triggered this. Will he get to the bottom of this? Will he not? Well, it's only a matter of time, isn't it? But let's just say the least, when it comes to Dr. Ivo Robotnik, he's not a nice person, and he's not supposed to be. He's the villain of the piece. And this is one of the few times where Jim Carrey actually tones down the goofy just enough for me, so it wasn't too in your face. He toned Robotnik down enough for me, especially so he could have these very rare in between comic moments where they didn't feel like they intruded on the movie, but then you could actually buy him as a potential threat, especially when he's got an IQ off the charts and a 5 PhDs. Quite the IQ buster, eh? And that's not always got going for him. Dr. Robotnik ends up basically confronting the military and ends up being quite out of order and rude to one of the soldiers, and basically he gets so irate with the guy. Not only does he talk over him as if he doesn't even exist, he also basically goes on to basically interrupt him and to make him feel like he just doesn't belong on the same surface as Robotnik. Never mind the same realm or the same planet. And if that wasn't enough accumulated wounds or anything else thrown into the ointment of life. Robotnik then basically really throws the challenge to the guy in the most heartless and horrible sensation by saying to this very soldier, not he doesn't just criticize his reading level, he also basically goes on to him, snaps at him with the following remark. Okay, basically, I've had enough of your nonsense. Why don't you go over there? Why don't you go and stand over there alongside with the rest of your personal abyss? Watch my machines do your job. You, this is the kind of arrogance and superiority that Robotnik is. The kind of person who would talk over most people, even if he knew inside privately, if only just, that they were completely in the right. He'd never admit it to himself out loud, never mind the other way around. Robotnik ends up tracking Sonic with his drones and ends up tracking him all the way to Tom's house. He ends up confronting Tom on his own premises. Tom basically tells him he ain't coming in because he doesn't trust him, etc., etc. But after a bit of back and forth, Robotnik ends up basically getting in somehow and ends up basically threatening Tom that if Tom doesn't tell him where this thing is that's caused all this aggravation and trouble, that he's going to basically set one of his drones on him to kill him. Robotnik's about to issue the order for this robot to kill Tom when Sonic turns up in a bit of a panic because he doesn't want Robotnik to hurt Tom, and in doing so, he ends up being able to distract Robotnik long enough for Tom to aim a vicious punch, knocking Robotnik temporarily unconscious. And with one accord, they both flee to Tom's transport and basically get out of Dodge while they still can. After Robotnik regains consciousness, himself and his lackey, Agent Stone, end up finding one of Sonic's quills lying on the floor. It doesn't take the devious Doctor long to realise that there's more to this quill than makes the eye, and that with this quill alone, once he works out a bit more of its vital secrets, he can actually utilise this very quill, ladies and gentlemen, to not just improve the efficiency of his machines, or particularly a very great like fighter machine he's working on, but it will also give his machines basically the equivalent of unlimited power, which will make them a far greater threat than they've ever been before, because the power supply will never run out at all. While Tom and Sonic are still on the run, Dr. Ivor Robotnik ends up making contact with Tom by phone call, and he's so furious with Tom, with a capital F, for punching him in the face, he actually says the following remarks, which I'm not even going to kid you on. I want you to know that the only other person who ever punched me in the face was the school bully. He hit me in the cafeteria, causing a blunt force contusion to the soft tissue surrounding my orbital bone. Humiliated me in front of the entire school. You know what I did in response? I examined the inefficiency of a world where brawn trumped brain, and I used technology to resolve that inefficiency. The boy ate his meals for a straw for a year, and I've never lost a fight again until today. Because you're about to become the bully with a straw. Inside and out, outside and in, that was literally probably the greatest thing to add to Dr. Robotnik, because I've seen him make a lot of threats in animation before, and that's probably the darkest and absolutely scariest threat I've ever heard a live action version of Dr. Robotnik make. And I think that really adds a lot more to his calibre as both a villain, an antagonist, and Sonic's absolute borderline arch nemesis of all time, because you can't have one without the other, and that inevitably says a lot about him. Because with threats like that, you know he means business, you know he means what he says, you know he doesn't care about who he steps on to get what he wants, and you know at the end of it, as much as I do, old school Sega fans, as much as anything, that he's a very unpredictable individual. You never know who he's going to go after or what he's going to do. He's just this deadly, unforeseeable force that you never know what he's got up his sleeve, and you know you never want to be in the way of his anger or whatever emotion he's feeling if something don't work out for him. This makes him but all the more of a deadly threat, not just to Sonic, the main protagonist, as much as anything everywhere around him, but also it makes him, in my mind and my honest opinion on this, um, a threat to essentially everyone else around him who can't run from one point of the world to the other in under 2 seconds. So Tom and Sonic form quite the interesting friendship throughout the film. Tom's very reluctant to do much to watch out for Sonic in a majority of one or the other, but what Sonic says pretty much resonates with him. It reminds him of a promise he made to his girlfriend about a life or death situation, and well after escaping Robotnik, when he tries to get the upper hand in whatever's going down, when he puts two and two together and guesses Sonic's the cause of this, Tom can't bring himself to leave him behind, and kind of feels like for the first time, although he doesn't really approve of this situation kicking his comfort zone really right out from under him as if it was never there at all, that yeah, he kind of sort of rises to the challenge, but he's got this sort of very deliberate, careful reluctance. And he says, and they get into a bit of a tense debate, or sort of a cross between a tense debate and an argument in this friendship when they're um, they're trying to get away from Doctor Robotnik's uh, armory and with weapons and drones and robots and things he sends after them. And he's saying, well, why would Sonic's like, well, why would you want to leave this world? Why would you want to leave Green Hills? It's like the perfect place. Why would you want to do that? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. So then Tom snaps at him, basically saying, barely keeping his frustrations in check while trying to drive and not get them killed in the process, saying, mine. It's all well and good you saying that. I just don't feel like I can get anything done anymore in Green Hills. What do they need me for? He basically says, not in anger, but he just says it in justified irritation because he just genuinely feels like he's done all he can for the people of Green Hills and he can't do any more. He says to Sonic the following words. Pretty much. As I said, like, what do they need me for? All I do for these people, I'm not supposed to be an officer and a cop, and all I do for these people is clear out their gutters and blooming jumpstart their cars in wintertime. So it's Sonic rounds him, saying the flame word. Be that as it may. Be that as it may. So well and good you saying that. But the point of the matter is, that's just it. They could ask anybody else to do that, to help them out, but they don't. They call you. And it sort of makes Tom sort of almost seem to be thinking, is there a place for me in this? Or am I just wasting my time in Green Hills? And over the course of the film, when they start to get a bit more friendly with each other and get on well, Sonic also gets to do a bucket list that Tom talks to him about, and Sonic asks what it is, and Tom tells him. So they go and do a bucket list of sorts, and the last The last thing Sonic wants to do on his bucket list is found by Tom himself when Sonic falls asleep in a hotel while they're hiding out, and the the thing that's written on the bucket list seems to move Tom beyond words, where it says the last thing Sonic wanted to do before leaving our planet because he didn't want any more heartbreak or anything, not out of that comfort zone to come to anyone else as opposed to just Tom by himself, was to make a real friend. And I think that kind of strikes a chord with Tom. He hasn't known this guy very well, but he understands how lonely he is, and that can't be fun for anyone, especially when they don't deserve it. Tom and Sonic encounter Dr. Robotnik again, and they end up basically being lumbered with a droid with a robot with a bomb, but not just any badnik with a bomb. This has an adhesive like glue substance which gets stuck to Sonic's glove and ends up stopping him being able to get this bomb off of him for a bit of a while to come. Tom keeps trying as well to get it off Sonic and eventually gets it stuck to his hand, and it goes back and forth, vice versa, until Sonic gets caught in the afterworld, the worst of the explosion, and ends up basically being pretty banged up and knocked out unconscious. Tom ends up basically taking Sonic back to his girlfriend so she can help him, and she ends up resuscitating him and getting him back on his feet with a particular set of smelling salts for humans. I also like how the fact that the rings that are turned up in the original Sonic games have a very clever, intriguing little um, explanation and origin in this film. So, in the original games, the rings that Sonic would pick up were used for gaining extra lives and also being able to have the ability to be granted to go to the opportunity to go to the bonus stage. And if you did good in the bonus stage, you'd be able to get a Chaos Emerald, and if you got all the Chaos Emeralds, you get the good ending. Whereas if you didn't get enough of the Chaos Emeralds, or you only got the one Chaos Emerald, you get the bad ending. In the movie of Sonic the Hedgehog, 2020, the situation of the rings is a lot different. The rings in the Sonic film are the ways that basically people like Sonic and Co. would actually travel between worlds, 2 hours or anywhere else they want to go. So that's quite fascinating. I think, how the rings are both used in this film, and they actually come up with a really good way to go about doing it. Sonic, Tom, and Tom's other half begin to say goodbye on the roof, and Sonic goes to basically send one of the rings about its business so he can go to the Mushroom World. Unfortunately, it's not to be so easy as they thought it would be, as a certain someone has decided to rumble their plans again. You can probably guess who that is, can't you? Robotnik turns up again and basically, tries to have a go at Sonic and Co again. Sonic ends up basically saving Tom and his girlfriend from getting hurt, and also ends up taking out pretty much all of Robotnik's robots except for this big major one that Robotnik's driving and flying, which is powered by the very quill that Sonic lost at the beginning of the movie, pretty much. So this thing's basically coming after Sonic now, and Sonic's literally in for the biggest run of his absolute natural newborn existence in life. Sonic tries his absolute best to outrun, lose, and basically get well away from Robotnik. But no matter how fast he runs, even probably faster than you and I could follow, at a blink of an eye or more so, no matter what he does, Robotnik just keeps track with him and just keeps up with him regardless of what he tries to do to get well away and out of dodge. And even Sonic's absolutely in raw red panic, the closest we've ever seen him in, and basically really can't really get him freaked out. So I can't believe it. How is he doing this? Nobody's ever been able to keep up with me this long before. And it's only a matter of time before Robotnik ends up basically catching up with him when he tries to go through when he tries to use one of the rings to escape him, and he ends up shooting him and basically slightly singeing him and knocking him unconscious. And it's less than a hair's breadth an hour away from the very epithet of the word endgame. Tom tries to come to Sonic's aid, but is no match for Dr. Robotnik. He ends up being thrown off of the ship, which he actually ended up getting on top of trying to fight Robotnik to save him. And with one accord, Robotnik ends up saying an insensitive following remark to Tom right near Sonic's prone unconscious body. I don't mean to be indelicate here, but someone should get some ice to keep the body fresh. He's just a silly little alien. He didn't belong here. To which Tom responds in absolute anger that he even dares to speak to not just a fellow creature in its own right, but this friend of his, and more, and so much more. That little alien knew more about being human than you ever will. His name was Sonic. This was his home, and he was my friend. Upon hearing this, Sonic gets back up with a second wind, ready to take on Robotnik like never before. Through blazing eyes, he literally glowers at Robotnik and says the following words to the point where even Robotnik's looking like he's pretty freaked out and scared for the first time in his life. As if for the first time, even Robotnik hasn't got all the answers. And Sonic says the following words to him: I think you have something that belongs to me. This is my power, and I'm not using it to run away anymore. I'm using it to protect my friend. So saying, him and Robotnik fight it out. Robotnik's got telescopic sights, but no matter what he does, whatever he fires at his opponent, he just can't hit him. Sonic's so focused and really intent now to basically make an example of Robotnik so he can't hurt anyone else, that he's moving far too quick for his guns and telescopic sights to see. In the end, he's damaged his ship so much that even the Quell power in it can't take this anymore. Sonic gives his opponent a grim smile as Robotnik glowers back at him in rage, saying the following words: Now you've done it, to which Sonic replies, I'm not leaving Earth, Robotnik, you are. While Tom uses one of the rings to open up a portal to send Robotnik to a place where he can't cause anybody any more trouble, Robotnik has just enough power to send his ship after Sonic again, with which Sonic runs at supersonic speed and goes into his rolling ball attack and basically smashes into these vessels so hard that it sends Robotnik's vessel hurtling out of control through the portal and into the mushroom world, where he can't cause any more trouble for a long time to come. Or can he? With Robotnik gone out of the way so he can't be a bother to anyone else, innocent or otherwise, things and peace return to Green Hill, to the Green Hills, and so much more. Tom basically decides to remain in Green Hills with his girlfriend because at the end of the day, he's come to realise that the smaller things he does for people, however much they appreciate it, are just as big as just as great and humongous as the big things. And if they appreciate him very much for the most smallest favours he does, then he can't really bring himself now to leave them, especially after what him and Sonic have been through. Tom and his girlfriend end up basically taking Sonic in and sort of adopting him, I suppose, as sort of like part of the family, if you will. The movie ends off with Dr. Robotnik on the mushroom planet and basically sporting pretty much the kind of moustache you'd expect him to be sporting at the beginning of the movie, but I'll overlook that, um, considering he got a majority of the character quite right. Um, he ends up sitting on this planet and basically finishing up the movie with the following reference: "I'll be, I'll be back before Christmas or by Christmas," and he actually has a way to probably make that thing come true, as he's actually got the quill somehow in his possession from his damaged ship after his final fight with Sonic near the end of it. So, how would I rate Sonic the Hedgehog the movie? Well, Sonic the Hedgehog was as big a part of my childhood as Nintendo, and you can't really you Sonic just ticks so many good boxes for me. Um, but what really made this film work for me, it was what they did with Sonic overall. This is one of the first times in the whole Division C of Sega where Sonic wasn't just this um, really overconfident person with little to no consequences, give or take, and who just basically ran or sprinted at breakneck speed, even more so to the point where I wouldn't put it past him to break the sound barrier every time he went out about doing good and daring do. You know, this was one of the few times where we actually saw Sonic not as this overconfident, cocky fellow who goes wherever the wind takes him, but a person full of genuine concerns of loneliness, not wanting to be alone, and where he sort of gradually works up his confidence. I wouldn't call it overconfidence. I'd call it sort of a cross between just the right amount of confidence, and when we really look at it from every accumulated angle throughout the movie, well before the end of it, I, don't- I, like, he, I like to think that his confidence is his defense mechanism, because if he doesn't have that to work with, he'd probably be thinking about being lonely all the time, and that's a very scary idea. And that probably makes Sonic as both an appealing and intriguing a character in this movie as what Robotnik is by himself. At the end of the day, a villain's only as good as the hero, and likewise. So you can't really have one without the other. Thank you very much for watching this review, everyone. This has been my final words on Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie 2020. Hereby give this film a whopping 10 out of 10. Have a great day, and have a great evening wherever you are, everyone. Happy New Year, and I hope you'll have a totally great New Year without anything from this C virus situation coming about anymore. Stay safe. Bye. Thanks. Elite Gamer out.